Welcome to Gavel. I'm your host, Cobb District Attorney Vic Reynolds. We're very excited to be back in the studio for our 6th installment of Gavel with our partners here at TV 23. This is a show about the criminal justice system in Cobb County, and our goal is to educate and inform the citizens about a system that remains a mystery to most folks. On previous shows, we've had an opportunity to take a look at the different types of courts in Cobb County. We've taken a look at how probate court works and juvenile court works. We've taken a look at clerk's offices. We've also taken a look at what happens if you're a victim of a crime in Cobb County. In future episodes, we're going to be taking a look at jury duty and how probation works, and try to talk about subjects that may affect some or all of us at some point in our life. Today, I'm very excited to be bringing you a show that I think is going to be very interesting to the viewers. We're going to talk today about laws that affect our animals. How do we legally protect our animals? What happens if an animal gets hurt or abused, and how we handle those cases in Cobb County. I'm very honored today to have as our guest an individual who has a lot of knowledge about this subject material, and somebody that I have the honor and pleasure of working with every day. Sherlyn Figueroa is an assistant DA in Cobb County, and I see daily her dedication to the prosecution of individuals who commit crimes in Cobb County, and also her dedication to the prosecution of anyone who may hurt animals in our county. Sherlyn, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us on Gavel to Gavel.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Why don't we start at the beginning, and you tell our viewers a little bit about your background and how you became interested in the field of animal law and the prosecution of people who hurt our animals.
Sure. I've had the desire to be a prosecutor since high school, but specifically I've been a lifelong animal lover. I've worked in animal rescue, transport, rehabilitation of feral animals as well. And in law school at University of Georgia, we had the classes in animal law, and I conducted animal research and wrote research papers on animal law and prosecution as well. I've been fortunate as my capacity as an assistant district attorney to continue that in giving trainings nationally with the Association of American Prosecutors at their national conferences, and also locally and statewide with Department of Agriculture, giving trainings and educating the public about it.
Well, I know that's very impressive, and I know you're even a little humble about those things, but you certainly received an honor recently, if my memory's correct. You were elected to a position in the statewide bar, is that correct?
Yes, I am currently the chair of the animal law section of the state bar, where we help individuals come into contact with lawyers when citizens have issues, because as we know now, animals are intersecting in all areas of the law, whether consumer law or litigation or wills and trusts, and at the state bar we facilitate connecting them to knowledgeable lawyers.
Well, I know you and I share a passion for animals. I have 2 labs, and I love my dogs, and I know you're in that same boat. You care deeply about animals. You want to make sure they don't get hurt. Before we talk a little bit about what we do in our office, specifically here in Cobb, I want you to tell the viewers a little bit about some of the training that you run and that you've done since you've become an ADA here in Cobb in educating and training our law enforcement officers in dealing with animals.
Sure. We did the national use of force in dealing with animals as law enforcement officers, giving them a set of skills that they can use in addition to possibly lethal force when necessary, but how to avoid that with many cases in the media about officers shooting dogs. We had that training. We also have how to better investigate animal cases, because a lot of times animal control is involved versus law enforcement, and giving them the skills and tools of how to collect evidence, retain evidence. Obviously our animal victims can't speak, so a lot of the work is needed on the front end to ensure we can fully prosecute the case by the time it gets to my office.
And I know you've been hands-on. You're not just talking the talk, you walk the walk. You've actually conducted seminars locally in the Cobb Courthouse where law enforcement officers come and learn and are becoming educated about this issue. Isn't that correct?
Yes, we had multi-jurisdictions come to our courthouse to hear from experts and watch trainings and videos, and for myself to give them some of the what does the prosecutor want and see, and also nationally, we've been approached by other jurisdictions on how they can improve their communities based on trainings we've given here in Cobb.
Good. Well, let's talk a little bit about what we do here locally in our DA's office, and so the viewers and citizens will know how we're attempting to resolve these issues in Cobb County. Why don't you talk a little bit to the folks about the Animal Abuse Unit inside the DA's office and what our goals are as far as that unit is concerned?
Yes, so we have 2 assistant district attorneys, Teresa Schieffer and myself. We handle all cases that involve an animal victim. We also have an investigator and an administrative assistant and a witness advocate to help us with the contacts, because they're not the victim advocate but the witness advocate. And we all have other assignments, but particularly we get together when we have those cases. We give them special attention from the very beginning, and since we have this specialized training, we implement that versus the case going to just any prosecutor who might not know some of the trainings we've taken.
Let's talk about from a practical perspective. Let's say, and we always hope and wish that it doesn't, but let's say that an animal abuse case occurs in Cobb County. I know on previous shows we've talked about cases and we've tried to educate the viewers on the difference between a misdemeanor case and a felony case. Our office prosecutes felony cases, the serious cases. Are some of these animal cases, do they fall into that category of being the serious felony matters?
Absolutely, and before the unit, unfortunately, since there wasn't a group where animal control officers could approach, some of the very serious cases like dogs being killed were only being handled in the ordinance level. And ordinance level, I would categorize that under misdemeanors, which would mean there's no jail time, only a maximum of a fine. And we did not deem that to be appropriate. Because of our unit, I now screen cases even at the ordinance level, and should they meet the level of a misdemeanor or a felony, I make the appropriate calls. And we have taken cases out of ordinance level and presented them to our grand jury. Mm-hmm. And the grand juries have decided that it is appropriate to approach felony measures. And also our solicitor, Mr. Barry Morgan, he accepts our recommendations when we believe they should be misdemeanors.
Well, I know that you've gone above and beyond. You literally go to these ordinance hearings, and if you have some concern about a case and you believe it needs to be handled at a higher level, you're involved in it from the very beginning, and the citizens need to know that and need to understand that. And so do individuals who have any inclination to hurt an animal. They need to know that on the front end. Let's talk a little bit about this unit specifically. Tell the viewers, if there's a case and an animal's been hurt or abused and it's going to be handled in the DA's office, do you reach out, have communications with animal control officers, the police officers? Do you handle it just like you would any other type of case?
Absolutely. The attention and concern is the same, but the fortunate situation is that I will probably know of this case as soon as it occurs. We have built such a fabulous relationship with our animal control and our police officers where they directly call me as they're going to a scene or as they're leaving a scene. And with that type of specialized and early intervention, I can get in there and make sure evidence is preserved, procedures are being followed so that everything is by the book and our prosecution is more successful. Let
me ask you about an interesting area that I know you have utilized as a tool in the toolbox as a prosecutor on animal abuse cases, and that's forfeiture law. We hear about forfeiture law where we take from a defendant who's been involved in some type of criminal activity monies that have been gained illegally or property or something of that nature. Is there any forfeiture law that may touch upon a case involving an animal abuse circumstance?
Absolutely, and it's very obscure. It's in Title IV, which is an area of our law that specifically deals with animals, and it's called a disposal action. Not to mean we're disposing the animal, but specifically like a forfeiture in a drug case where the state would obtain cars or monies in that illegal activity. Here we are able to use the law. For example, if there's an animal that has been abused or mistreated, normally without using this law, that animal would stay in our county shelter. Our taxpayers would have to pay for its treatment, health care and needs. It would stay in a special area of the shelter where it wouldn't see visitors or volunteers, practically being in a kennel for 22 hours a day. It's a very difficult life. And now that we use this disposal action or forfeiture, we can obtain the animal, have it adopted, and we've done that. So we have had animals that are victims successfully adopted and placed in better homes, and so they don't have to remain or stay in the shelter. And a typical felony case takes maybe a year, so you're looking at giving the dog much more humane life and saving the taxpayers money.
Well, that's a great program, and we're certainly, I'm very proud that you all are doing that and proud to be part of that. You know, an interesting area, Sherlyn, that I found to be interesting becoming DA is the link that we're seeing between people who hurt or abuse animals and other types of abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Let's touch on that a little bit. Have you found that to be true in your research and study and knowledge about animal abuse, that those individuals are frequently linked to other types of abuse?
Absolutely. The past 20 years, the research has constantly reaffirmed that people who abuse animals tend to abuse children, the elders, and be involved with intimate relationship violence. And the studies are correlating this at high rates. It's already known since 1970s. The FBI has always noted a correlation with murderers and people who abuse animals. But generally, the studies also show that people who abuse animals are 5 times more likely to commit violence against humans. And we've noticed that. We've noticed a high recidivism rate. And that was part of the justification why our unit was established at the DA's office. These are individuals who will either go on to graduate to, like I mentioned, more serious crimes dealing with children or our elders. And so we want to prosecute them and bring them to justice earlier and not let them graduate to those types of crimes.
Absolutely. And let's hold that thought, and when we get back from this break, we'll talk a little bit about some specific incidents that have happened in Cobb, cases that we're already completed and through with. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ask the folks to stay with us for a moment. We'll be back after this break on Gavel to Gavel. Thank you.
Shelters are the best places to find a new pet.
What a perfectly beautiful little lady.
That's where you'll discover healthy, loyal, and loving animals.
You little rascal.
Eager to become a part of your family. A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet.
Oh, ladies first.
Be that person. Adopt.
This is living. Hey, kid.
To find out more, visit theshelterpetproject.org.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds.
Welcome back to Gavel to Gavel. I'm your host, Cobb District Attorney Vic Reynolds, and we're very honored today to have as our guest Ms. Sherlyn Figueroa, who is an Assistant DA in Cobb and also involved in the prosecution of animal abuse through the Cobb DA's office. Now, Sherlyn, right before we took the break, we were talking a little bit about these links between people who hurt animals and people who have the potential to hurt humans, children, elderly, other individuals, and we talked about the links. Let's talk a little bit specifically about what we've seen in Cobb County. Obviously, we're ethically prohibited from talking about pending matters, but let's talk about some cases that are over and completed.
Absolutely.
Concerning the links you talked about a moment ago, are there some examples you can share with the viewers where these links have been present and you've actually seen them in some cases.
Sure. We've had several child neglect cases where children aren't being fed or bathed properly, and we found several dead animals, cats, dogs. We've had several of those which establish that child abuse link to animal abusers. We've also had a particular case of a group of swingers who are sexual deviants here in Cobb County who had moved on from sex acts, not just with each other, but to children. They were being prosecuted for child molestation and child abuse charges, and we also had bestiality allegations and charges as well. Going on to the domestic violence realm, we've had an individual girlfriend, boyfriend. The girlfriend was threatening to leave, and the boyfriend used the puppy, the family pet, as a form of control over her and placed the puppy in a oven that was turned on, causing severe burns. That is a close case we've had as well. So we see this, and organizations we work with, such as Adult Protective Services, has caught on as well on their intake. When individuals call in an elder abuse case, now the dispatcher will ask about if there's pets involved, because we often see that offenders who exploit the elderly for their money or resources will threaten, I won't get food for your cat, or I'll harm your cat if you don't give me your check. We've seen that a lot, so we've made sure on the investigative side to always ask and inquire about that as well.
Something we hear about too often in the news are these dog fighting rings. Have you had an occasion to see any of that in your prior experience as a prosecutor, or your involvement in animal law protections?
Absolutely. In the organized crime realm, gangs will engage in animal fighting and dog fighting in particular. There's some of the gangs that engage in gambling also have horse racing, illegal horse racing, where they abuse and neglect the horses involved. So unfortunately, it's very vast, and in each type of crime we have, it's no surprise we also have animal victims.
Well, you and I know, agree very strongly that animal cases, as you said a moment ago, frequently lead to other types of abuse, and if we can head this off on the early end and do something about animal abuse, particularly in our county, then hopefully we'll stop other types of abuses. So,
absolutely.
Let me ask you about a topic or a subject that we're beginning to hear about a little bit on the news, and that's what I believe the media has termed as pet flipping. Tell the viewers a little bit about what that subject means and what that topic is, and how they can be on the lookout for things of that nature.
Sure. Pet flipping is a term the American Kennel Society has started to use, and also it was featured in a Time magazine article. It refers to individuals' pets being taken wrongfully or held wrongfully and then turned over for a profit, either rescued or adopted out for a large fee, or even sold on websites and on the internet. So it is particularly disturbing to us because these pets are not only legally property of individuals, but they're much more. They're companions, they're important parts of people's families, and we've seen a trend in that, and and our investigations are looking into cases of that here, even in Cobb County.
Well, let's as we get toward the last part of the show, let's spend a little time on some practical suggestions. Obviously, you, with your passion for the protection of animals, with your involvement as the chairperson of this section of the State Bar, do you have any practical suggestions to our viewers about what they can do to make sure their animals are protected?
Absolutely. Aside from the obvious, make sure your animal's kept in a safe environment, doesn't get out. We do see incidents where the pet gets out, they run, they go off. Of course, make sure your animal has ID and collar, and I highly recommend they have a microchip. And now many individuals have microchips in their pet. However, I strongly recommend going and making sure that your specific information, your telephone, address, and name is embedded or registered on that chip. We have several cases where there is a chip in the animal, but no information linking to the chip. So I highly recommend going to your vet or even places like the Cobb County Animal Shelter. It's not a very large fee, and double checking that your vet is properly microchipped to you. As for consumers, if you're looking to buy or adopt a pet, make sure it's a reputable organization. Ask the organization, where did you obtain the pet? How long have you had it? What are the paperworks? And then best, my 2 cents is go to the shelter. The shelter here in Cobb County, we have a fabulous shelter. We have great adoptions, great pets there. And that's a place where you can ensure that the animals are truly abandoned, because most individuals that lose an animal will first go to the shelter to see if their animal's there. And sometimes with some of these unreputable rescues or individuals who are trying to just make a profit, they don't care about finding the animal's true owner, they will avoid going to the shelter or telling the shelters they've found strays.
Well, I know I agree with you, and we share the same belief that adopting pets is a great thing. I know I've had several dogs, and my rescue dog is probably one of the best ones I've ever had, and they seem to really appreciate a good home. And so let's wrap up the show talking a little bit about not necessarily what we can do as far as advice to people to get animals, but let's say something happens in a neighborhood or by your home where you see an animal getting hurt, or you believe an animal hasn't been taken care of appropriately. Any advice to the viewers about what they should do under that circumstance?
Absolutely. I recommend actually calling the authorities, and that being if it's an emergency, 911, or if it's troubling enough to call the animal shelter in the county. And I recommend that because in our investigations we see people post things on social media, this dog's been out, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But I recommend you tell the authorities so we can go out and investigate, warn people, educate people if they're taking care of their pets in a wrongful way, rather than doing nothing. And knowing that, again, the studies confirm if there's animal abuse going on, there's likely to have other crimes occurring. So I encourage individuals to, knowing this link of how violent animal offenders can be or how they could be engaged in other types of crime, to report those incidents.
Well, you know, I understand you, and we've talked about it before. Sometimes people are reluctant to say, I want to get involved, or they think they're being busybodies or nosy, but it's much better to if you see something, to say something and let the authorities check it out. And as you said a moment ago, part of it is just educating people. Sometimes they may not realize what they're doing. So, well, thank you so much. I want to tell you, this is a subject that we could discuss for hours on hours. And as I've told the viewers before, I see firsthand not only your passion, but your partner Teresa Schieffer's passion in protecting animals. And we'll have you back soon, and maybe have Teresa with you, and we'll discuss this area even more. So thank you, Sherlyn. Thank you for all you do for the citizens.
Yes, sir.
Be honored to work with you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for watching this episode of Gavel to Gavel. We appreciate you watching us and learning about this very interesting topic and subject. I'm Vic Reynolds, the District Attorney of Cobb County. We look forward to seeing you on future episodes of Gavel to Gavel, and stay safe.
You wanna go for a ride?
When I saw your face for the first time, I wondered how your life had been. Had anybody held you or loved you, or had they never noticed you there? What are I see you're coming home.
Why are you turning in this dog?
Be the best of friends.
Well, we're moving.
How long have you had the dog?
11 years.
You understand the dog will likely be put down?
Yeah.
I'll need you to complete the surrender if you would, please. You're giving up all rights to the dog. Are you okay with this?
Both my eyes have filled with tears, knowing one will find a home, leaving others fate unknown. We're killing our best friend. There's only so much one can do, that's why I'm out here asking you.
Did you want to keep the collar?
I don't think so.
Don't run away from your fear. That lovers need to learn and finally be concerned. They're killing our best friends. There's only so much one can do, that's why I'm out here asking you. How can you help me?
Every year, in Metro Atlanta alone, nearly 90,000 unwanted animals are put to death. It is epidemic and unnecessary. The problem can be fixed. Spay and neuter your animals. The time to act is now. Stop the needless killing. Please help us. www.mostlymutts.org